Yes, you wonder why we give you the stink eye when you complain when the Wi-Fi goes down. You're like, I can't stream Spotify. I made a new playlist. Do you know how we used to make a playlist? Play, record, and pause. The biggest shift I've seen is not generational, it's communication-wise. That the preference of communication is what has shifted. But it hasn't shifted for millennials, it's shifted for everybody. Everybody wants viral, everybody wants word of mouth. But we don't realize the one key to going viral and getting word of mouth is doing something worth talking about.
Your entire brand is dictated by the people that work for it.
You want to know how to do great marketing, great PR, have great employees.
Business is still built on people. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if you believe that business is built on relationships, make building them your business. And the one thing I love to do most is speak on stage. I live and breathe sales and marketing and business and technology. I never stop consuming content. I never stop talking about it. I don't give a talk. I give a report on what I see and what I feel. This is what I love to do.
One more time for Mr. Scott Stratten!
In today's business climate, there's so much change. They call it the age of disruption. We're running down the street chasing after these business squirrels when we have to stop and realize that business is still about great service, great products, which will make a great business. Everything has changed, and nothing is different.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Andrew Moon, Orange Nomad, coming to you from a very cold and looks like it is a snowy, frozen Columbus, Ohio. So welcome to your Wednesday therapy. So happy to be here. Happy you're joining us. Boy, do we have a good one this week. We have an absolutely phenomenal show. So if you're watching this on the replay, tell us where you're watching from. And if you're a first-time guest or you're a repeat, let us know that as well. But let's just get all the technical geek stuff out of the way. Let me know that you can hear me okay. Give me a thumbs up in the comments below that everything is coming through loud and clear. And then I'm going to pull on a very, very special speaker, one that has been near and dear to my heart for almost a decade now, and has been a mentor of mine without even knowing it. And I'm happy to have him on the show today. So looks like we've got quite a few coming from all over the place. We've got Scott coming from Austin, Texas. So you're probably a heck of a lot warmer than we are. Here, I think the high today is about 20 degrees. So Josh Chamness, Frozen, Illinois. You're a couple states over. So welcome to the show. Got a couple repeat guests on the show this week. So thank you guys for hanging out with me this week again. So those of you who have never watched this show before, this is the Do What Is Necessary live stream. I started doing this show every week on Wednesday as a method of therapy for myself, first of all. But I named it the Do What Is Necessary live stream because this live stream is about doing absolutely what's necessary for you. That looks different from everybody else, and I'm all about challenging the way that the gurus and the way that we've always been taught that we need to do things, we need to run our life, that we need to run our business. And specifically this week, we're talking about the death of old school marketing. And I brought in an absolute phenomenal expert on the subject that's going to talk to us today. So please put your hands up and help me welcome Mr. Scott Stratten. I'll give you the celebratory clap, too, so.
Oh, I missed that. You know, last time I got applause, I don't even know. From a decade of being on stage to virtual webinars where you click done and there's nothing, not even the cats will give me applause. It's nice to get it. Thank you.
Just empty room. You look out into nothingness. So
I'm in my basement. I just turn it off and there's these lights and then just cavernous darkness.
Exactly. So I'm just going to listen to a little mood music and go take a little nap here. So, but Scott, so I went and looked, and I'm gonna pop this up on the screen too. I wanted to see how long you and I have been connected on LinkedIn. So Mike, it's gonna do a screen. We've been connected since 2009. So we've been connected for a long time. I didn't realize it had been that long. But yeah, you were definitely instrumental. My last business, I ran a tech business, and that's why I started this show, because in 2008, when the Great Recession hit, I remember what that felt like as an entrepreneur. I remember how alone that felt.
Me too.
And I didn't really get marketing, so it was when I picked up your book, and I still have the original hard copy from 2010, your book on marketing, and
it's no longer available. No longer
I know.
available, man. It's original. Well done.
I picked up the paperback too, so I've got your whole repertoire on my desk right now. So
awesome.
But I just want to thank you for being on the show this week. I mean, I set off a bit of a firestorm last week. The title of the show last week is Why You Need to Stop Marketing. So needless to say, I got a hold of a few people's attention with that one. But it has sparked a bit of debate, and I introduced that concept of unmarketing that helped me through my last IT business. That sea of sameness and copy and paste, and I still see it today. So tell us a little bit about what your inspiration was behind writing unmarketing back in 2010.
Well, I was in the same place like yourself and a lot of other people in the late 2000s that I had one of the most successful viral video companies on earth in the mid 2000s. We were the ones that made a lot of those viral slideshows, really what they were. So if you remember back in the 2000s, they were like stock photography with cheesy text and cheesy music. And it was like the Time movie and the Dash movie and all these. If you saw one of those, the majority of those was my company, and I apologize. And they worked, and they worked really well, and it was word of mouth and referrals. And I got real lazy and complacent, and because I didn't have to do a lot of work, and the clients came in, and that was it. I played Xbox pretty much for a lot of the time, and I just didn't create any kind of marketing, any kind of platform. I just sat back. And then when 2008 hit and stuff, nobody was in the market for $10,000 glorified slideshows. And it was it. I was out. I was empty. I was bankrupt. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And we had a couple of young kids. And one of the things I realized that you had mentioned already as an entrepreneur, it's very isolating. And I'm a people person. And community has always been what I'm about, especially online. I've loved the internet since I got on in '94. I haven't logged off since. And back then I was in IRC chats and bulletin board message boards, and I just knew community worked really well that way. And I loved what they did. And so I decided I need to find my water cooler. I need to find the place where I can just talk to people and build relationships with people, not for business. I wasn't looking for clients, because it's not just a community isn't going to look for clients. A community is a community. It's where you help each other, you build relationships. And as a solopreneur, I didn't have that. I couldn't turn to somebody and say, is this bananas? Like this situation, whether it's an accounts receivable issue or a business idea. There was nobody to go from with that I had kind of like minds. And so I joined Twitter, but I didn't join it and use it at the same time. I joined it in, I think it was April 2008. I joined and saw it. I'm like, oh, this is not for me. This is not my thing. This is a little ridiculous. Like it says, what are you doing? And that's when I'm supposed to tweet that. And I'm like, eh. And I did the typical thing that I figured I was going to go into business and marketing consulting at that time, where I could go and make some revenue and use my brain. And I didn't want to do it because it's not for me. That's the biggest sin you can do as a consultant, I think, is not use something because you personally don't like it versus what would be good for business or a client. So in January 2009, I decided to live on Twitter for 30 days. And I was going to give it my all. And if it didn't work, I knew I exhausted it, and I tried it. And at least I would understand it and know who it would be good for. Because I think that's part of being a consultant with something is might not be good for me, but that for your market, this will be great. And I tweeted 7,000 times that month. And I went from 1,200 followers to 10,000. And this is back in 2009. And I realized, well, there's something there. And I hadn't left it since. And I knew there was something. But the difference in those 7,000 tweets or the 25,000 tweets was the context of them. People think, oh, it's too many tweets. And I'd argue a few things. One, do you text? How many times do you text in a month? Well, that's what Twitter literally was originally, 140 characters text. And I looked at that whole world, and even after 25,000 tweets, I still hadn't pitched anything. I hadn't sold anything. 85% of those tweets were replies. That was the secret to social then, and that's the secret to social now, which is being social. That's what it's good for. I found the platforms are very terrible for sales and marketing because it comes and goes, and it's expiring, and recency effect is a lot of things in algorithms. You know what it's great for? Getting to know people. If you believe that business is built on relationships, make building them your business. To the point, I had this made, which is behind me. I'll grab it. I pulled it out of storage. I just found it. I forgot I had it. This is a word cloud of my first 25,000 tweets.
Yeah.
What's
no
the biggest
sales and
word?
marketing there.
What's the biggest word?
Thanks.
I don't know how else to put it. 85% were replies. And at the start, since nobody knew who I was replying to conversations I found interesting. Either I could be helpful or I just want to say thank you for that. And then as I got more known, the replies were replying back to people that were sending me tweets. But it was always in the service of others. That was the point. And then when I got the book deal, because of all the noise I would make, that's how for me, it's about leverage. And part of my background is in the music business too. And I didn't want a label to go to one and say, can you listen to my demo or something? And same thing with books. I didn't want to go to a publisher and say, will you publish me? I don't want to do that. I don't want to justify myself like that. I don't like it. And I don't like trying to justify myself to a place that will take 90% of the revenue of something. And I have no problem with publishers. We've published 5 out of 6 books with Wiley. I love our team at Wiley and everything they've ever done, and even the former people on the team. But if you're taking 90% of it, I'm not justifying giving it to you. You come to me. But I knew I had to make noise. I had to get a spot for that. And so I got the book. I got a call from Shannon Vargo, who's still the editor for us today. Called me, and I didn't know. I got a referral, and she says, why haven't you written a book yet about UnMarketing? And I'm like, why haven't you offered me a book deal about UnMarketing? And she's like, touche. And that's when I got the book deal. But here's what happened. Outside of being a moron and starting writing at 18 days before it was due because I'm a moron, and if it wasn't for Allison and meeting her on Twitter and becoming best friends and then ending up marrying her, she's actually was the secret weapon of UnMarketing, the ghostwriter who in the subsequent ones we put her as a co-author because it was just my 38,000 word random thoughts that she took and turned into what UnMarketing is, how you saw the hardcover and how you see the paperback. But the true testament to the community, to the foundation I had laid over 25,000 to 50,000 tweets to that point was in June 2010. The book was coming out that fall. And this was my test. The proof of concept. I sent one tweet that June. And I said, who wants a tour stop on the Unbook tour, which was about me. I'm going to do talks, not sit and sign books. I'll sign them after, but I want to give value. 30 cities, 30 people in 30 cities put their hand up in North America and said, we want to support you. 100 books, fly me down, put me up. Why did you have to fly me down, put me up? Because I had no money. I was bankrupt, but I believed the concept. Half of those tour stops were people who had never run an event in their lives. And the other half were existing AMA chapters, social media clubs that were all the rage then. And half were people like, I don't know what to do, but I know we need this. And I did 30 cities in 10 weeks. It nearly killed me doing that. And I did not stop speaking since then. I even have I have a photo here of it. Actually, I'm gonna see if I'm gonna pull it right up on the screen here. I did talks in loft spaces. Here's a car dealership.
Nice.
In Edmonton. that the person's spouse worked at the car dealership and they knew it was closed in the evening, so it was space. So I got to do it. And I just did gigs. And that moved 3,000 copies of the book, which is great for the book and the lists and all that kind of stuff. But my goal with the book was I wanted to speak. That was my goal since I was 12. And that literally put me on the map speaking. And I've done 520 something keynotes in that 10-year span after that tour. And that was because the community believed in me, because I helped give to the community first.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And that's where, most folks miss social. And it's still, what's funny is it's still, here we are 11 years later, and that's still the case. So many people
learned this stuff
miss
early,
that.
I would have nothing to say. If common sense was common, man, I'd be out of business.
And I think that speaks to, to touch on what you originally talked about. I think that's why entrepreneurs are so driven. It is not necessarily always about money. And the ones that are about money it becomes clearly apparent, and they don't last very long. But it's that true sense of building something and having, people rally around that.
Yeah, but let's Andrew, let's be honest about the people can be totally terrible and be all about the money and do it for a long time.
Yep.
But they won't have long relationships. So it's like there's other models of doing this stuff, and UnMarketing is one of the ways that to do things. But being a jackass and treating people like numbers and buy or goodbye, it can work if you want to build a long-term business or one that is based on certain principles, and that's different. But the problem is we think that people, if they do it, it won't. Look, people make money unethically every single day, and I don't mean the other way is unethical, but that you can be totally unethical, you can be totally a prick about stuff and make it. But I want relationships that will last, not just with customers, because to me it's about everybody. It's customers, vendors, employees, and the public. And that's the business I want to have and be involved with, is one that benefits everybody versus just the person who's cashing a check and then it's buy or goodbye.
Yeah, and it's so much of that. I still see it where people know when you're just trying to get to their wallet, and it's a very disconcerting feeling. But as entrepreneurs, that's what we want to be able to do, something good, lay our head down on the pillow and feel content with that. But the flip side of that is we've seen a lot with social. We still see it, gurus teach to get on there and sell, and it's the copy and paste marketing that I still see it in the industry that I came from, in the IT industry. We still see a lot of that, where social media, just marketing in general, is just copying and pasting what everybody else does. What would you say is the biggest challenge to helping people overcome that stigma of, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste and see if this stuff works?
If I still have a mission left in my life of where I'm at right now, to me, it's also going to be the end of cut and paste broetry on LinkedIn. The single line with a space story where it's usually somebody who came in for an interview and they just didn't look the part. But I saw something different. And I know the person smelled funny. And I know they shot me twice. But I knew there was something there. It turns out that was Elon Musk. Like, it's just like these dramatic cut and paste stories, which are great the first time you read it. And then a little bit smells funny the second time you read it on somebody else's profile. And it was a first person account of things. The problem is see things go viral. And they get like envy, they get engagement envy, and then they hear, oh, this is how you do it. Or they paste the popular thing right now on LinkedIn, which is that meme of like using all the 5 emotional reactions LinkedIn allows you and says, which age group are you? And, 15 to 25, like this post, 25 to 35, celebrate this post. And it's just a game for the most part. And the problem is, I don't have a problem with people even doing those things because they think that's what you're supposed to do. I have a problem with people who teach those things. That they say, this is the only way to engagement. This is the only way to use LinkedIn. You either cut and paste cheesy posts, trick people into engagement, or spam them in their private messages. That's how you build a business through LinkedIn. LinkedIn isn't a business. It's a platform. And a platform you and I don't own. So first, we have to be careful about renting a house on that we don't own and understand that. So we have a home base still that we do own. But then that platform can be anything for anybody. I have to be careful when I say you can't do this or you can do this, which I did a lot in the original UnMarketing and with a lot of stuff I said, because I had to take strong stands. Because I also know, one, I believed in them. Two, polarization is the way to get popular. People who like your stuff because you take strong, as long as you believe in them. Nobody resonates with somebody who's just in the middle the whole time. You don't want to straddle the fence. It's also painful. It hurts with you have one leg on each side of a fence, but it doesn't resonate with people. And that was for UnMarketing. I honestly, Andrew, it was at a point of saying, I don't know how many people are going to buy this or believe it, but I know I do. And I know that there's got to be a section of people out there who don't want to play the buy or goodbye game. They don't want to just be snapping necks and cashing checks and get to the Catalina wine mixer. That they actually want to connect with each other. That they actually know there's a lot of business to go around with each other. And I want to find the good people, the ones that resonate with, and the ones I can truly help and do something with. And that's when we put UnMarketing out. And we were expecting no corporate buy-in of it. We were expecting only people like yourself to resonate with it, with entrepreneurs, because I am one. I think entrepreneur is Latin for bad employee. I think it's in our DNA. I think it's somewhere in there. I don't know if you have it. It's something deep in me. From my age of 12 years old, when I opened my first comic book store in the basement of my mom's house without telling her, don't worry, I didn't have any customers anyways, to now, it's a thing in your brain. And I'm so overwhelmed with joy of how many people resonate with, both in corporations and outside of it. And the fact that they feel it's given them permission to be able to be authentic and be themselves and truly value relationships that you build. And that's because the slogan for everything is if you believe business is built on relationships, make building them your business. And that's what I have done for the past 10 years and the past 20.
Yeah, it was that line in the book is what completely changed everything for me, because at that time, from 2008 to about 2011-ish, I was doing everything. I was buying every course. I was buying into every toolkit. Everything was out there. I spent probably, if I added it back up, probably close to $100,000 on the education of this is what marketing looks like. And I'm saddened by that because here we are 11 years later. I probably had 6 people reply from last week's show that have spent near that same amount of money over the last year or two on the same gurus that are still in the market. That are teaching that. And that's what struck me was it has to be about community. So I started to emulate some of the things you were doing with Twitter. Is I started connecting with people here in Columbus that were outside of the IT space. And we would have monthly meetups. We would meet at Five Guys Burgers, was a new burger joint.
Well done. Love me Five Guys. Love me some Five Guys.
But it became, it slowly grew. I think the first one we had was like 6 or 7 people, and it was all off of Twitter. And I think the last one that we did right before I sold, I think there was like 56 people there.
It's great.
All having lunch. We had attorneys, we had people from every industry, and all there to do one thing, is build community and help each other.
And the best part, it's not forced. Like there's some groups that do that where they meet, but it's like forced referrals. Like you have to bring referrals to the meeting. I'm like, that's a referral isn't forced. A referral is, I know the perfect person for that. That's the difference, right? And you give me business, I give you the quid pro quo type of stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not why I give referrals, because referrals are an extension of my brand.
Yep. And that was the amazing thing that happened is, no one was there for that intent. We were not there to do business, but business happened. You know what I mean? It was just in conversations. Even if it didn't happen there at that lunch, I would have referrals. I would have people calling me out of the blue because I was the IT guy. I was the IT guy of the group, and I got business from it. But that wasn't my intent. That's not why we started doing that. That wasn't, the premise for which we were coming from was about business. It was about building community. And an interesting thing happened is having people in different industries there at those lunches, you start to see different perspectives on how to run a business.
Yeah. Yes. Especially when you get out of your own industry too.
Yep.
That is so valuable that I think it's at the point when I'm in a talk and I give an example, like I give my unrealtor story about Petrus, who's still a realtor, and we wrote about him and it shows, and he's just such a great story and a great way he got my attention. But I have to preface it almost every event. I learned if I prefaced it, it went down better, which was, I'm about to give you an example that's outside of your industry. But people are just like, well, that's not us. And they get a case of the yeah buts, right? Yeah, but this, yeah, but that. I'm like, the point of these things, of best practices, is not to copy them. It's not to be in their industry to do them. It's actually better not to be. It's to take away, okay, so then what's the moral of the story? What are the parts of it? And that's where the value is. I get more out of being outside of my industry than I do being inside of it. Because a lot of times too, in the industry, there's different motivations, there's different things. And I did a lot of things with the speaking industry and a lot of things previously with the speaking industry, but it's different. It's a different vibe a lot of times where I don't feel they're my competition. And what the problem is, you get these local groups sometimes is you don't want to meet with everybody, but it's wonderful to meet in it and swap stories and stuff. But getting outside of that, you don't have even the thought or the perception of this person as a threat to my business. And then you can freely swap stories and ideas, and that's where the gold comes out.
Yep. That's when the innovation started to happen. It was people from outside your industry will tell you what they think of your industry. So you tell me. I mean, I was in tech support. That's what we did. What do you have a worst case scenario of a tech support gone wrong?
And that's
a really loaded one.
But that's the thing though, right? And then you just like, you can see it. And the problem is that a lot of companies don't want to hear what they're doing wrong. Right? They literally in denial that, and it's funny because when I talk about like disruption, right? And I say disruption is change without time to resist it. That's our definition of it. But I also tell people, I'm like, it's disruption when it happens to your company, but it's innovation when you do it. And I'm like, it's just perception on how we look at things. I remember that I way back in the early days when I got a consulting client and they wanted me to come and do some kind of lunch and learn sessions for them. And it was big. This is like 18 years ago now. And I was doing a lot of work-life balance and trying to help. I went to school for HR, if you can believe that. And I went and met with the executive. And we sat in their fancy boardroom with that oak table. And we sat around, and 5 of them, and they talked about it. I'm like, so what are the issues here right now? I'm like, well, Scott, we don't have any, which is the first indication I know they have issues. And he's like, what we want you to do is take our employees from here to up here. And I'm like, all right, gotcha. And I went and met with the first group. 6 groups, 2 sessions each over a certain amount of time. And I started with the first group in a lunchroom that did not look like the boardroom. And I started talking. I started doing my thing. And it wasn't landing. And I know I have a bit of an ego, but I know what works. Even then, I knew what lines would resonate because I'd done it before. And nothing was landing. All my indicators weren't firing from resonating, laughter, anything. All those adult learning principles, nothing. Just like a flat line. And I stopped. I said, hey, what's wrong? Stopped. And there's only like a dozen of them. And one woman put up her hand. She says, the tips you've already talked about, they're all fine. But the problem is, sir, when you're done today, you get to leave here. And I'm like, am I in prison? Like, I got to call the warden to buzz me out? And I'm like, my God, they have more problems than they ever imagined. And so I went with the rest of the groups, and I just said, take out a piece of paper. Right? Stop, start, continue on it. Tell me everything management should stop doing, start doing, and continue doing to make you feel like you're at the minimum level of being valued. So they weren't like here. They were subterranean in morale. And I took all the results over all those sessions. And then I went to executive, back to the boardroom with binders, printed out, collated, fancy, all their results. No names, because they were writing them, and they stopped suddenly and looked panicked and said, our name's going to be attached to this. I'm like, no, I'm going to take it all and I'm going to put it all into a thing and write it out. And I sat down and they're like, rumor has it, Scott, you did we hired you to train and you did a survey. And I'm like, yeah, it's funny of what I found out. And so I gave them all binders and I started going through the feedback because this company had no continue, which is what you want. You're hoping, what you're doing well, like one continue out of all their employees, which was, I liked the hot dogs at the summer barbecue. That was the one continue. And just pages of stop and start. And one executive flipped through it, and every page he flipped through was more violent. And the last one, he tears the page out. And he says a few expletives and then says, Scott, I think one of two things happened here. You either lied to and told them to say these things, or they made them up. And then he sat back. And I said, or possibly there's a third option, a dark horse. This is how they feel. And the CEO looks and goes, great, thanks, we're done here. And I left. We never want to look at our own things. We never want to look at our own problems. I know, by the way, this is way off course with the original question, but it doesn't take much to trigger me these days, Andrew. So I don't have a stage. So, but that's like a story. We have to get out of our own ways. We have to get out of these things, and we have to look and listen and see what's going on.
And I think that right now, a lot of our viewers, a lot of my audience is in the tech industry. And right now, when I look at what happened in 2020, and I look at the shift in the conversation about technology and the shift in people's perception of how valuable technology really is.
Yeah.
That the seat at the table that these IT providers have right now, when I look at this is the perfect storm. You couldn't ask for that all at one time.
Yeah.
And I think we're now to the point where, we're into month 2 of 2021. People have had the chance to catch their breath with 2020 in the IT space. Mm-hmm. And they're confused as to which direction to go. So from that perspective, somebody outside of the industry, what would you say has to change inside the tech industry, the tech support industry, to make that seat at the table one that stays there?
Well, it's the same problem that we had when I was in HR, and even the problem we have in marketing still somewhat, is that we need to come to the table with the same things that other things. We have a disadvantage, whether it's IT, whether it's HR, and even marketing. Again, the 3 chairs that are sometimes not given at the table or taken away, or they're trophy chairs, is that sales and ops and finance all have numbers. They're like, look, this equals this. We do this, stock price goes this way. Or we do this, our bank account goes this way. And then we're in marketing, depending on the type of marketing and the department, we're like, well, we want to put this stuff out and we feel it'll get a good reach. And sales is like, I don't know what even reach means, but this is what these numbers mean. We have to match the metrics to the table. We have to match the metrics to the mind. And I think, though, a collaborative effort is what's most important. An understanding that a seat at a table is only worth anything when the table works together. And the problem is so many companies operate in silos. And necessarily for a lot of the reasons, but a lot of times they're just like, they're literally one silo against another. Customers don't see silos. Clients don't see silos. And if you're like, an MSP or something where you're in the middle of things, then you're also in your own silo trying to defend your worth. And you're getting hit by other companies coming in around you, trying to go direct, trying to be a different provider and all these type of things. It's about a collaborative effort instead of a defensive effort. And that's the problem. We spend so much of our time too on the problem clients, or the ones that are causing the most headaches, where the most freeing thing I did in my consulting time was fired a client. Not easy when you only have 1 or 2 of them, But a lot of times that it's that whole 80-20 or 99-1 kind of thing where 20% of the clients take up 80% of your time when it comes to problems and issues. Clear communication, collaborative working is something that I think needs to be done much more than it has been in the past, much more than it's being done now. But that also is the responsibility of other people. It is not on IT and people in service providing and people in tech to also then get respect for themselves. It's also other departments understanding that if your tech ain't working, you ain't working.
Yep.
That the threats of things aren't just a sales tactic. That everything can come down. And I'm not talking about a scam where it's a fake Microsoft support and you're sending money to somebody. I mean, literally now, if you don't understand the impact and importance of your infrastructure in a tech way, and you have any data whatsoever of any customer or employee, you are being irresponsible. It is irresponsible, borderline negligent to not respect IT services, whether they're in-house or external. That this is no longer a thing. We are no longer like seriously, I think some people treat tech like this, right? You know what I mean? Like they're like, well, it'll pass. Right? It'll go away. We don't, okay, right now, sure. No. I think part of the problem is it's their problem, and nothing you can do about that necessarily about it. But I'm like, it's also part of this is like, what is wrong with you? Not you and IT, but the people who are controlling the table, well, we don't got to give them a seat. We're not going to trust them. Like, look, out of everything in the world, information technology, that world can make your life heaven or hell. And you actually make that choice and you don't realize it.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on that too. And I think so long in the industry, specifically having been in that the conversation for so long has been about, the tech of it, the speeds and feeds and the technical side of it, that we've kind of pigeonholed ourselves into as an industry, into that viewpoint. And I think that's what worked for me in my last tech business is I went about the education. How do I change that narrative of how people automatically, when you say the IT person, the tech guy, that automatic thing that pops into your head, that perception. And I took that out of your book. We started doing, lunch and learn in-person seminars. And that was what it was 100% about, was educating people on what tech actually meant to their business. And instead of just puking out content, cyber breach after cyber breach after, people turn that off after a while. How does it correlate into my business?
And there's another, I totally forgot that one part. I wanted to add it, but because I won't forgive myself if I don't remember this. One of the things you can do though, is not be like me in the mid 2000s. Don't become complacent with your knowledge. Don't become arrogant with your knowledge, because especially in tech, boy, like how things change, how things come, like it's so breakneck speed, the disruption, the changes, it's so many things so quickly, is just don't allow yourself to think you know everything, because I've done that multiple times in my life, that like this is enough. Because and I don't mean just self-learning, I mean educating clients, because one of the things we'll get into is we can sign somebody. I had the joy of doing a lot of talks to a lot of kind of managed service providers in the world, and I got to do a lot of talks in like Vegas and something for all the people in the audience that were part of that would help with IBM stuff and Microsoft. It was so cool because they're some of my favorite audiences, some of my favorite people, because they always were ready to do stuff and think of ideas and implement things. One of the things you have to remember is you don't want to be a provider to your clients. You want to be the expert to your clients. You happen to also provide what they need. It's consultative selling. And the problem is consultative, we think that means I'm going to look at your stuff and recommend what I've got.
Yep.
Consultative is about the tech as a whole. And one of the things that I did I used to be a national sales training manager for a packaging company. I flew around North America training people how to sell bubble wrap. And I'll say that again for the latecomers to the session. I flew around North America training people how to sell air. Like if you think what you sell is hard and it's competitive in a competitive marketplace, Yeah, I sold air in a competitive marketplace. But we ran 2-day training schools on this type of stuff. But our job was getting our salespeople, and we actually trained our distributors or our customers. My job was training them, but we also trained our salespeople that their job was the best solution for that end client. And we may not provide that. And it's like Zappos, right? It's like the Zappos before Zappos type of thing, which was we will find you the item whether or not we sell it.
Yep.
And that is so freeing because you're trying to, then it shows the client you are offering the best thing. And when it comes to managed services, when it comes to tech, when it comes to information services and IT and give me an acronym, whatever else one you want to throw in there, are you confident enough in your abilities, your knowledge, and your company to possibly talk to them and say, I don't think this is the best decision for you right now, when they could have signed a PO, when they could have put it out there, that you have that knowledge ability, but also new stuff coming in and going to your client. And here's the trick. Here's the test. Would you send your client something of a new technology that you yet have offered and you don't have right now, but it's really interesting and it may lead them somewhere else down the road? Would you send them the article on LinkedIn, on email? Would you hand it to them in a printout? That's the true test to me, because now you're an expert, not a provider. And that's where you have the longer business. And it's not just based on a renewal or a price point or a cancellation. That's when I trust you. Yeah. That's what it is. That's trust. That's all you've got. Because anybody else can probably provide the solution you're doing. What do you got individually?
Yeah, and there's really nothing different. In the MSP space, there isn't really anything different from one to another. We all have the same tools. You provide the exact same thing. We fix stuff. And that's the differentiation comes about, what you talked about in the book, that building a category of one. And, having that.
I use this all the time in my talks, and I know it's across my face right now, and it's weird, but this is it. If you are your authentic self, you have no competition.
And I think that point resonated last week. I brought that up on the show, and that's why you and I are talking this week too.
Exactly why. And that's what it is. If you are in a sea of sameness, do not make your differentiation point your price.
Yep.
Otherwise, that is what you're graded on.
And I think the two things that you touched on that I think lead people to that price discussion all the time, because we still coach a lot of IT providers, and that seems to come up all the time. All they want to do is talk on price. You've left them no choice. Yes. And you've not educated them enough. You've not bridged that gap of trust. And, it's that collaboration that you talked about. It's not, me telling you need to do this. They need to understand.
I can't understand why they just are only asking about price when you started the entire relationship by adding them as a connection on LinkedIn, saying we can get you a cheaper price for your cloud computing. Let me know. And now he also wants to talk about price.
Yep. Yeah, and that's that. I started using LinkedIn completely different back in 2012, and because I was doing what everybody else did, it's exactly what you touched on, is just sales pitch after sales pitch, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. So I stopped doing that and making connections with people, and then I made a specific effort to just go have coffee with them. One afternoon a week, I would take people I was connected with, offer to go have coffee with them in a non-sales environment and just learn. I was there to do one thing and to just learn. And by starting to do that, an amazing thing happened in 2012 is I was trying to get our lunch and learn set up. We were 2 weeks out. I think we had like 7 or 8 people registered. So I went on LinkedIn and those people that I had those relationships either in person or offline, and I invited them to the event. Just one at a time. I went home for the night, didn't think anything of it. Came back in the next morning. I think we had like 25 registrations, but my inbox was full. And that was the thing that stuck out to me, was the amount of replies that I got back from people. Thanks for inviting me. Unfortunately, I can't come to this one, but please invite me to the next one. Yeah. And that's when I knew that's when I knew that it was completely different than anything else we were doing. And how we did LinkedIn.
You invested your social currency, though. That's what it is. Literally, that's how we base all of our stuff on. When you invest your social currency, When it's time to make a withdrawal, you've got a much larger deposit than you're taking out. It literally, and people show up to specifically, since we're on LinkedIn now, yeah, we can talk about LinkedIn specifically, where people are like, they want to withdraw before they deposit. And it's as simple as I can make it. And that's what I live by. Have I deposited enough either on this platform or with this individual? I don't make relationships to ask them for something. I don't make relationships so I can leverage you. I make relationships because I want to know more good people. I want to know more people who stimulate my brain. I want to know more people who I can say, hey, what do you think about this? I want to be able to build network that is beyond my physical field of vision, which is beyond my local area as well, and increase the ones in the local area. And that's who I want to connect with. So that's why I get extra feisty when somebody adds me on LinkedIn and then immediately pitches me. And I'm like, really? Did you read anything I've ever done in my life? And the answer is no, and they don't care. Why? Because most of the time it's even automated.
Yeah.
And like I literally tried to stop this stuff, man, on even my website. We changed everything when everything locked down. We put up and I did it all on my own. I was like, I need to get my hands dirty again back in this. I've done the 10 years of speaking and on the road and just bliss. And I'm like, I need to make sure I understand what's available today if I'm going to have people ask me about it right now. I can't be irresponsible. So I said, okay, then I'm going to do our entire website, and I'm going to change our newsletter provider and our podcast host. I'm going to do everything. And I got dirty with it all. And I came out of it, right, and made the site. And on the site itself, we started getting spam in the guest posts, right? And I read a blog post every 4 years, and our show has no guests. On podcasts, we've done 320 episodes. We don't have guests. And of course, these people they don't care, and so they automate it and they send these things through. And now I put on the contact form on the site. We do not accept guest posts nor guests on the show, just to see if they're even looking. Because I'd always feel bad when they'd say, hey, would you take a guest post? You wouldn't want to, or my assistant would reply, or I would reply. And I'd be like, no, thank you. Because I'm Canadian. So, we're passive, we're passive in person, aggressive behind your back. And so I would do that. But now, if you use a bot, you don't read my content. You just want to take time out of my day to promote yourself. And I have nothing. I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you, and you send that, I have no problem. Just not even reply. Bye. You didn't even read. Spam filter. Bye.
Yep.
And because you're not respecting my time, and we always take this on ourselves. It's like, well, I don't want to feel bad. They got no problem taking your time. That person has no problem spamming your DMs. And then if you have the kindness, the courtesy, and the manners that my mama taught me to reply back when somebody says something to you. And they have the audacity to go, well, why? Or they start going the next page on their script. Get out of my day. Get out of my time. Well, I think it can work. Fine. Then go. You know what? Everybody who likes to spam each other on LinkedIn, let's just get your own spot. Then you can spam each other all day.
Put them all in a
all
group.
Day, because the only freaking people, Andrew, I've seen that justify it are the people that do it.
Yep.
The people that jump onto my page when I used to be vocal about it, but I stopped because it's the same crap every day. The only people that be vocal about it saying, well, you can't, what are you talking about? It works, are business development people who are selling a course in it, or they climb that ladder. And I don't want to see the carnage underneath it. I don't believe success is a ladder where only one person can be on a rung and you have to step on somebody to get higher up. I believe in an elevator. I know it sounds cheesy, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I think we can all get to a certain level of success together without stepping. Business is not zero sum to me. It's a way that we can all do things, and we can do that. And insert cheesy phrase here: rising tide raises all ships, or anything else you want. I violently agree with that.
Yep.
And I'm tired of the rest of it. I'm tired of you taking up my time and you automating it because you don't want to spend your time building a fake relationship. That's not why I'm here. And people say, well, it's only social. It's only this. No, it's people. It's relationships. And you're getting in the way of me connecting with actual people who give a damn.
Yep. And I think that proliferation of that has increased dramatically because of last year.
Very much.
And people are frustrated by it. And when people come to us to work with us, and, I teach LinkedIn, and I teach what I learned by doing it, that it is about relationships. So the very first, lesson is that you need to change your mindset on why you're there. You're not there to sell anything. Sooner you get that out of your head, the better the platform actually works for you.
I did a thing yesterday, and somebody had a Q&A, and they said, so how do I sell my own stuff then? How, like not my business, but you want me to sell me personally? Like, how do I sell? I'm like, no, don't sell. Just be you. And this is one of the reasons why I didn't even think I'd be pulling up graphics today, but here it is. Like, this is, this is like the foundation of UnMarketing, and like my hands will be beside it here. So like, this is the hierarchy of buying though. This is literally why people hire a service-based business. This is a B2B survey we did over a decade ago. Why you'd hire literally a lot of people who are watching right now is like, the higher up the hierarchy you go, the better the relationship, the higher the trust. The lower you go, the more the competition. And the last reason I'm hiring somebody to do my IT for me is you called me up, or you LinkedIn cold called me, right? Or you social spammed me, or you warm spam me, which is a connection then spamming you. The next reason is search. Whether that means I'm going to go looking or I'm going to Google it, whatever it is. And then we start going into recognize expert. But when you have recognize, meaning you have content out there, you have your thoughts out there, it also helps with search. And as you move up, UnMarketing starts here, getting you recognized as an expert. Because the foundation of UnMarketing was all about positioning yourself in front of your community and your audience. So if not when, if somebody in your community has a need for your product or service, they choose you without condition immediately. That's a community to me. You never have to give me business, but if you needed at the time, you needed a keynote speaker for your conference, one. I'm here. And this is what I do. Or, I have books, or I have this, or whatever it is, but I've never built a relationship, try to get business from that person. It's backwards to me.
It is. And an amazing thing. I mean, I just got somebody messaged me the other day that I met through either Twitter or Facebook back in 2009. And she was like, I'm working with a new company, and you're the first person that came to mind. Here we are, 12 years later.
It's not just music to your ears.
It is. And I was like, all right, that's what you want. And it takes time. And I love that graphic, because the higher up you go in that hierarchy of buying, it's more time consuming, but it's less competitive because there aren't many people doing it. And
I really believe that, and that competition is partially also our fault. That when we lose a client to it, we didn't see the signs, or we're not offering the right things. But then some people just leave because it's time. But it's also with this is like, that's the pricing thing again. Well, you're swimming in the bottom. That's where price sensitivity is. If you're cold calling, you have no leverage and no credibility. Can I add that?
Yeah.
When I got a message from a company and they were touting how good their AI is, and they did not use my first name, but instead it was dear first name on the authentic connection request. And how their software actually didn't work even in the connection request. And I posted it publicly. I'm like, really? Like, I don't try to, I honestly, I'm trying. I'm getting older, man. And I'm trying not to just name and shame, but I did a lot of it. And I still like to do it because some people deserve it. And I publicly did. I'm like, come on. Like, I really hate fake authenticity. I hate automation in social. I don't think you can automate relationships.
Hey.
And also the person doesn't want one.
Yep.
They don't want one. They just want your money. And that's fine. Look, if I'm going to buy toilet paper, I don't need to talk to the brand. I don't need to get to know them. I don't need a relationship. I just need to know it's going to be comfy when I use it. But if it's a service provider, if it's a trusted thing and I'm going to bring it into my business, I do want to kind of get to know you. I'm sorry. That's just how it is right now. And I think more people now, more than ever, want to know what's behind the logo.
Yeah, exactly. So we got a few that have joined us from Aberdeen, Scotland.
Scotty from Scotland.
Scotty,
can I say, please, that is the homeland of my family, from my grandparents up, and I've yet to make it there. But I will try to come there in the summer months. Yeah. And I will get there. My entire family tree is like all Dundee. So I'm going to get there one day. And also half my tattoos are Scottish. So
nice.
Good to see you, Scotty.
Just got Sean Lardo from the Berg. I grew up about 45 minutes outside of the Berg. So welcome,
One of my
Sean.
favorite arrangements of sporting fields anywhere is in Pittsburgh, the Heinz Field and the PNC Park. I don't know if they're sure if they're both called that anymore, but I love that waterfront, Three Rivers and stuff. Shout out to Pittsburgh. And one of our kids is a Steelers fan, so
Sweet.
Not my fault.
Is it? I've noticed that going through a couple things. When I told my wife last week that you were going to be on the show, she was just like, that's awesome because I've got all your books. But my son's like, who's this guy? So I pulled up YouTube and showed him your NAMM presentation. So you have another fan, by the way, because he's into guitar. His name's Owen as well. I think you've got an Owen.
Yeah, I do. I do have an Owen, yes.
So yeah, we sat and watched your NAMM presentation, and yeah, he absolutely loved it, and he might be listening right now.
Oh well, Owen, if you are watching, that's also my son's name, so you're on the right step. And then get your pops or you to send me a mailing address, and we'll send you your own copy of a book, so you can have your own. You don't have to take it from your dad.
Exactly. But yeah, it's. I just, going back through one of the reasons that I started this show back in April, and, I was digging through, found my book collection. One of the other things that we did, and I'll send you a copy of this as well. I know you're into comic books.
Yes.
It was one of those think differently things in our marketing. This was 2012 that I had this made.
So smart. I love that.
But I was like, okay, what can we do different? And I was in one of our customers, actually runs, I'll give him a shout out too, because I just went and checked. I gave them the back page spread, Nick's Comics. So nickscomics.com right here in Columbus. He was actually one of the guys that ran that in his spare time, but he was actually one of our clients. He was an office manager. We were in there talking one day, and again, I think that's so much that is missing in the IT industry. We don't take enough time with the people that are actually paying you money. And that's what I started doing. And again, there's what I got from your book, that while we're in there, let's have conversations. Let's, build community even with our customers, the people that, who really cares that the IT guy's there. But it was different, for us. Mm-hmm. And he actually said, hey, I knew he was into comics. Every time I would go to his desk, he had comics everywhere. So I just sat down one day as I was getting ready to go, and I said, "You're into comics?" I said, "You know anybody who can write a comic book?" And he's like, "As a matter of fact, I do." So he actually wrote it and had another artist, young up and coming artist here in Columbus, make that. And it was phenomenal, because then we started sending that in our pre-marketing kits. When people would make inquiries before we would go meet with them, we would send them a kit. And that was one of the things that everybody wanted to comment on. It looks like Steve Gladman, he's the CEO of the company at the time, just absolutely loved that idea. So when we got them in, I signed one, framed it, and he actually hung it in his office.
So smart. So great.
But it didn't take much. And when I look at it, I was trying to remember, I think we paid $1,000 for 1,000 copies and gave them free advertising in the back of it, drove clients to his store. But it's just about thinking differently.
People have spent so much more to get so much less.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just such we had one of the things I did in speaking, we made the video mailers. So we got a printing company to make these 7-inch HD screen in them, and you opened it up, and my speaker trailer, the video you played at the start of this, the full video just started playing, and it was awesome. hard shell, and they were $75 a piece to send out, and people were like, "Oh, it's too much," because I also did a very low quantity. I could have got the price much down if I wanted 5,000 of them. And I said, "Look, my 1 gig costs this much." And it's like, I get a half gig. I can pay for these of all the printing and everything else. And I'm like, it's not looking at, well, what is the upfront do? It's like, what is the impact? Right. And also the fact that it wasn't going to be one person receiving it. It was one person receiving it and telling a bunch of people they got it. Like we did that something. I have it here. I'm going to grab it right behind me. It's one of the reasons why we have all this stuff behind me. Also, if you see faintly behind me, there's you can see some figurines behind me. That's the Joker there. That's Wolverine over there. Full statues. That's Barry Sanders down there. So now you know my football team. That's one of the Gamorrean guards from Star Wars. Anyway, so I love comics. So we did this. This is this gold record type of thing, and but it's actually not a real one. And I managed bands in Toronto over 20 years ago, and my favorite band to manage was my brother's, because that's one of the reasons I got into it, is because I could hang out with my older brother more. But I learned more managing bands in Toronto than I did anything else I've ever done in my life in business. And one of the things we did was we wanted to sign with a big producer. That's one of the ways to kind of get in the door. And we had a couple of producers picked out, but you can't get to them. You just can't. And most of the music business runs through lawyers, right? They refer people to other people, and that's how you go. And so we said, well, how do we do it? I had the addresses of their studios. I found it. And this is back then. So this is what we didn't even have, barely the internet. Like, we had the internet in 97, 98, but it wasn't like it is today. I had the Canadian Music Guide. I knew where the studios were. So we had these made, and it was a gold record of the band, and the plaque at the bottom and the back, we had the band photo, and then a whole kind of fake write-up in the paper. But at the end of it, the whole thing was, and if you sign on with this band, it'll come true. And I mailed them all out to all the people, except the one thing I didn't realize. I thought this was all plexiglass. It's not. It's glass.
Glass.
And so they all smashed when I mailed them, and I got them all returned.
Man.
But I still loved the concept, so I kept one of them. But I didn't send out, and I'm like, no, I'm still proud of it. I think it's because it's that type of idea, which led to the video box these days, which led to the donkeys for Jackass Whisperer. Like we had, like this awesome. This is Jack. This is Jack. These are the Jackass Whisperer socks. And if you want to give away a pair on this live, by the way, I'm happy to. You can just tell me whatever somebody has to put in there, and we'll send a pair of I'm Not the Jackass Whisperer socks.
First person to put that in the comments gets the socks.
Yeah. You know what? Screw that. I'm not going to send you the socks. I'm going to send you the whole kit because you're on Andrew's show right now. We'll send you the whole thing. Jack, signed copy of Jackass Whisperer, the book that Allison and I made, and a pair of the socks, man. You tell me. And Andrew, we'll send you one too. Don't worry. Or I'm going to send it to Owen. You're just going to be jealous.
And my wife will put that up, put my name on it for sure. So,
but like, so we thought when we do this, and so literally, so Allison's the true entrepreneur of the two of us, like my business partner, the co-author, and luckily for me, my wife. Also, we met on Twitter. How's that for our?
It's awesome.
And so one of the things we did, and on the back there's the logo, the Jackass Whisperer logo stitched into them, and so we said, what fun thing do we do? Because if we're not enjoying it, Andrew, if we're not, why are we doing this? Like, why are you an entrepreneur if you're not enjoying it? Then if you're not liking it, then just work for somebody and get paid. It's more consistent. You know what I mean? Like it's. I honestly, we got, if we can call the shots, then one of those shots has got to be some kind of joy, some kind of fun. And so we went to Alibaba and found a bunch of places. It's surprising how many places would offer you custom donkeys. And we had 500 made. We still have like 200 in the garage, but I had so much fun, man. We had this whole basement here was a farm of donkeys. It was just like, sorting them all out to send out, because we did it for the book promotion when it first came out. Yeah. Because the phrase Jackass Whisperer took off so much and people loved it. And so now, Anyway, so one person watching right now, for sure, man. We'll send the whole kit.
Awesome. Yeah. So you spoke of your brother being in the music business. I was making notes. I'm a Winger fan as well, so I love that reference in the book.
Rock like Winger, man. Yeah, that and I'll give a real quick version of it if people want to hear, because it's really it guides me.
Yeah.
So my brother, who's the one I followed in music, and like he introduced me to, and got me in the music industry. He's still in the music business now, and he lives in Texas, just outside of Dallas and Frisco. And he told me the story of going to, because before he owned a music company there, he did sound for a lot of venues, and one of them, I think it was the Glass Cactus at the Gaylord in Dallas there, and Winger was coming, Winger from the 80s, and they were playing, and we loved Winger back in the day, man. We were all about the hair bands and Kip and his wonderful chest mane, and he would come out with and one of the only singing bass players ever out there, or was given the microphone. And Chris is like, well, I'm going to Winger, man. I'm like, nice. I'm like, how was it? He's like, there were 7 people. And I'm like, what? He's like, 7 people. I felt so bad for him. And you know what? He rocked it like it was 70,000. He came out and gave those 7 people a show they will never forget. And I used that line, rock it like Winger, in any gig I ever had and do. And I started out doing speaking way back in the day. Like I spoke at like the food court at a mall and it got heckled by somebody working in the food court. I spoke at, like with 3 people and it was always in my head. It's like, you know what? Rock it like Winger. And that's what I do. If Kip Winger can do it, so can I.
Yep. I get that a lot when we talk about video. I was kind of the same way when we started doing this show because I was, not comfortable with the format, not comfortable with being on camera. But I was like, I'm doing it anyway. We started the show April Fool's Day last year. And I know it was
good day.
It was funny. Looking back on it, it was just a fluke. Like I hadn't planned it. I'm like, I guess that was coincidence. But it was interesting that we did that, and that's the pushback that we get from a lot. What if nobody shows up? Because I've encouraged IT providers to do what we did with Lunch and Learn in-person seminar events. Obviously, we can't do that now, but that's the biggest thing. What if nobody shows up? Mm-hmm. So I love that. Rocket like Kip Winger.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a valid fear. Look, my first talk I did in person, which was the same as a Lunch and Learn kind of thing. I had 14 people, 9 of which were family that felt bad for me. 3 of which were people who were there for yoga later in the afternoon. They were just early. And then 2 people that came. Like I've done teleseminars. Teleseminars. I'm talking corded phone, dial in and listen in a handset. And I've done them for 1,000 people bridge line. And I've done it once where I just had to be honest with the person listening and said, you know what? It's actually just you and me.
Yeah.
I know, I get it, but every rep you do, audience or no audience, the rep you do that helps you get experience and helps you gain a little bit, just a fraction more confidence. The rep doesn't know how many people are in the audience. The rep counts as much as there's 5 people in the audience as 5,000.
Yep.
Virtually or in person. Everyone you do gets a little bit better or a little bit easier, a little bit more comfortable. That's the goal of it. And you don't want a huge audience, do you? Do you want one? On April 1st, did you want 5,000 people concurrently watching your live feed? I bet you didn't.
I actually did it because we did it like 8 o'clock at night here on the East. I'm like, okay, if nobody shows up, it's fine. Cool.
Smart.
What's funny is 1,000 people watched it in that first week. So I was like, okay, well, maybe let's keep doing it. And that's kind of how it's been, week in and week out. The comments have actually stopped coming into Ecamm. But Scott Bateman, fellow Scott, so good name, he actually posted he wants the free gift. So I'll message you afterwards, Scott. We'll get your address and stuff over to Scott.
We'll ship it out to you.
But again, I'm gracious that you spent time, with our audience today. And if you want to tell people, why you decided to come on the show this week, so that they can kind of get a perspective. I didn't message you. We've been connected on LinkedIn, but
no, and that's the thing. And it is a really good. Thank you for asking that, because it's a really good kind of point to everything. Which was I'm not doing these really right now. I'm focused a lot right now on trying to learn more, listen more, stay in my lane, and also understand and self-care, and because this is a lot. This is a lot for everybody right now. This is you know what? It's too much. Everything is too much, and so I'm very careful where I put my time out right now, because I don't have a lot of mental capacity for things right now. It's just too much. Everything is so overwhelming. And then I saw a notification on LinkedIn about your live, and I get tagged a lot and stuff. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I get tagged a lot because I have a following on there. I have a presence. I've been on LinkedIn a very long time. And I also, as you know, how long we've been connected for. And I get a lot of notifications. And a lot of times people will just do the tag spam, and they'll tag me, and they'll be like, with me or with a bunch of other people, and they'll be like, thoughts? And you don't want my thoughts, or you do because you want the leverage of it. You don't want my actual thoughts a lot of times. You want me to, and it'll amplify the post. And I don't like that at all. That is totally against what I talk about and what I do and what I am. And then I saw yours, and it's always so nice. It's as an author, it's always so nice to see when your book has affected people, and it's never changed, and it never gets old, and it's so cool. It's so cool. And then I saw your stuff, and I noticed that you were actually talking about how much it affected you, and also how pro your setup is. I told you that before we came on. It's the best one I've seen, and that is great. But it was your heart about it. You didn't go out there and say, this is what I'm doing, and then private message me and say, Scott, by the way, I put you on the show to promote you. Come on the show. Which actually would have been fine because you actually already gave in theory. Like you helped promote it. And you're like, hey, and you could have said easily, and I wouldn't have been offended. Anytime you want to pop on the show, I'd be happy to have you. But you didn't. You put it out there. You gave, and you literally did what I did to publishers. Everything else is like I had them coming to me, and so you had me coming to you saying, "Hey, can I come on the show?" I don't. And again, this will make me sound like a jerk, and I'm sorry. I don't ask to go on things. I have a popularity in a very small bubble. I know my standing in celebrity, and I'm not a celebrity, but I am known in certain circles, and I get asked a lot to do things in those circles. And right now, I'm just not doing them. I just don't want to. I don't have the capacity for it. And I literally said, I have to be on this LinkedIn Live with them because this is the type of person that I'm proud that they read the book. And I'm so flattered that it helped you in any way possible for that because it helped me. Because those ideas were what made me what I am today in business. And that means we have the same idea of stuff. And that's the point of all this. Isn't this the point of LinkedIn, though? Is connecting. And now we connected in 2008. You showed the evidence on LinkedIn in 2008. And we have stayed arm's length apart. Right?
Yep.
We haven't hung out. Right? We haven't gone there. We haven't had coffee. We haven't had a beverage. But it's there. 12, 13, 14 years later.
Man, I feel old.
Live. You play the long game, my friend. But you're not playing a game.
Right.
You're simply putting the stuff out there that you liked, that helped you, that did something. And that's endearing to me. And that's why I said I had to be on it. I told Allison, I'm like, you got to see this guy's show. It's great. Love his stuff. And he loves the book. And she's like, it's good people out there.
I appreciate it. You have to tell her we said hi, and when this comes out, I'll come up to Toronto. We've been wanting to visit again, hang out. My son's never seen it, so he hasn't been out of country. So
it's good. Is he a sports fan too?
Not really. He's into his guitar, man. So.
Oh, dude, no, forget it.
Yeah,
you're fine. You got to go to Steve's music store, and you'll be fine. You'll be all good, man.
He will love it. Are you going to be speaking at NAMM anytime?
Yeah, dude. I'm now considered a lifer with NAMM.
Sweet.
I got to my first time was doing the keynote there, and my good friend Mitch Joel got me in there, and I fell in love with not only the event and the music and the awesomeness of it, and 100,000 people that love music alongside of you walking a trade show, but everything. The people that run it are incredible. Their passion for it is so good. And now that as I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, when your children can have common interests that you have. Oh, it's so wonderful. And for us with music, our two oldest, my two kids, when Alice and I merged families, the two oldest, Aiden and Owen, they're both music producers now. And that just awesome. Makes my heart warm. And then, they came to NAMM with me. That's awesome. And come on, man. How do you, as a speaker to you, I was like, I don't get, I'm not a celebrity on that. I don't get all the free stuff. I'm not pulling in with getting a Porsche and all this stuff and a Rollie and stuff like that. But you know what I do? I have access to that stuff. And you can, and we literally walked in last NAMM. So last year's the one right before everything got shut down in Anaheim. I brought Aiden too, who's done college, went to music industry arts in college. That's literally what he wants to do. And the first thing we walked into a NAM, once we got settled, we walked into the speaker area where I know everybody. You walk in and it's Jason Mraz right there.
Nice.
And Aiden's like,
You just became cool, Dad.
and I'm like, do you want a picture with him? He's like, am I allowed? And then we got the photo. And, and it's just like, I'm just like, now do you believe me that I'm partially cool?
Yeah.
He's like, no. I'm like, good. I need to be grounded. So.
Let's keep it that way. Yeah, we cleaned out the basement. It's one of those old moments. We started cleaning out the basement to build a recording studio like right before Christmas. And of course, me being the old guy, pulling my back out. So 6 weeks later, I'm like, man, we had it all planned out. So
I grew up with in our house, the house that I lived in when I was, a teenager and stuff. The basement, there was 3 rooms in there. My bedroom, the small one, the big one, which was my big brother, and off his room was a soundproof recording jam room.
Nice.
Yeah. Music's been a part of my world and life, either in the peripheral or involved right from the get-go, man. And I still love it today.
Yeah, this was kind of the other side reason for getting this show done, because he wants to start his own YouTube channel. So we're just breaking him into all that, and that's
sweet.
Happy to be doing that. That was it was one of those benefits that came from 2020,
right?
That it's everything stopped, and we're like, okay, let's spend the time together. So.
Oh God, Andrew, this is honestly for me, this is the great pause.
Yeah.
And and out of all the terribleness right now, it's happening. So many levels of it. The one thing I have gotten is time back. You don't get that back.
Yep.
I've been on the road, dude, for 10 years. And before that, I was on the road before that too. I spent more time with these kids than I ever have. And it's a blessing. And I'm so lucky because our kids they're 24, 19, 18, 17, 14. They're on their way out. Yep. This was supposed to be the final hurrah. And I'm sure they're sick of me at this point, but I'm so blessed with it. Oh, so fortunate.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that, you touched on too, is just being the overwhelmingness of 2020 and being an entrepreneur, all of it. We actually had somebody, message me that watched the show last week that I wasn't even connected with prior to last week's show. One of his friends liked the post. He watched the video, reached out and said it literally brought him to tears. And, that's when I had to really stop and think about that. The impact that 2020 has had on people, the impact of what we're trying to do every week with this show, and to take time to appreciate that, because the gurus out there aren't telling people that. They're telling them you need more, you need more, you need to grow, you need to 10x this, 10x that. That's why I started the show. It's to do what's necessary, and that's do what's necessary for you.
Thank you for starting the show, Andrew. It's much needed for people. It's much needed when I watched last week's, and even when it wasn't about me. But you get that out of because that is a thing, and it's also a thing for us as men.
Yeah,
we don't talk about stuff like this. We don't go out there and do it. Which is just like again snapping necks, cashing checks. No, it's too much. Yeah. This is too much for anybody to handle, especially pretend that you're handling it well. And if you are, okay, great, more power to you. I don't know what superpower you got or what privilege you have to not be affected by any of this. It's too much, and we have to change things. We have to make things right in our brain. We have to be kinder to each other, and most importantly, be kind to ourselves.
Yeah. Nobody
can handle this well. Nobody can. I don't think anybody is, or maybe I'm just projecting right now. But damn, man, this is hard.
It is, and I'm seeing more of that show up in IT forums that I belong to, just because tech guys, tech businesses played lights out all last year, keeping people open.
And the industry was churn and burn before that.
Yeah,
the industry was like if somebody burns out, then next one standing, come on in. It's not a way to run a business. It's definitely the way that business almost had to be run in 2020. Your employees are not expendable. Your talent is not expendable. They are not robots. They're not code. They're humans. And the one thing I like about all this, Andrew, the one thing I really like about all this, about the work from home that was forced on so many companies, is stopped allowing them to give excuses of why my quality of life couldn't be better. Also, that opens up a huge window for accommodation. that people with that needs have accommodation needs and people with disabilities have been screaming for the ability to work from home. How that is literally life changing to people. That is literally on every level. And they're like, we can't do that. And now I'm just like, you could have. And remember that anybody watching right now, and if you run it, if you manage it, if you make those decisions, think of the people in the company and think of how we can make their lives better instead of what they can do for us all the time. They work for you, but they're not yours.
Yep. Amen. Yeah. So we'll leave it on that. I got one more question for you. Who's your favorite band?
Oh, man.
My son asked me that. He's like, I wonder who's into these days.
Oh, a heck of a question, man, because I celebrate so many musical catalogs. I'm going to give you an actual answer, but my first cop-out answer is I like good music.
Yep.
Honestly, and as a father, when the kids come to me and say, have you heard this song? It's just, they still they actually care about my opinion about music. It's so cool instead of me just saying, well, back in the 80s.
Back in my day.
But you and I, I'm not going to ask anybody's age. I'm 45. And
I'm 47 2 weeks from now. So.
All right. So I'm 46 in April. So, you know what, we're Gen X, right? So, we grew up on a healthy dose of whatever. If you're metal, it was, early on, it could have been Metallica, Motley Crue, and I went into Pantera. But Rage Against the Machine is my jam. Yep. And that was perfectly timed with my teenage years, right? The right, Rebellion, literally the song, and then the Township Rebellion, and then Freedom, and all this stuff came out. Rage Against the Machine. So my top bands, I can't pick one. I can't, because they're all different levels and times. But it was Metallica, Pantera, Rage Against the Machine, Primus.
Yep.
However, though, don't you tell me Backstreet Boys, New Kids on the Block, NSYNC were no good, dude. One of my best concerts I've ever been to was NSYNC, Backstreet Boys in Vegas 3 years ago. They did a reunion thing. One of the best. I love performers. That's why I get along with a lot of musicians too and artists. I love performers and I love performances, and that you can't let a bias of music get away from that. Pink had one of the best concerts I've ever been to in Toronto at the Air Canada Centre. Blew my mind. And I've seen Pantera 7 times. I've seen Skid Row 5 times. I've seen Metallica 4 times. One of my favorite shows was the reunion for GNR. I saw the first concert in Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena, and Axl sang better than he did in '93, which was weird to me. And he sat on a throne, had a broken foot, and he sat on Dave Grohl's throne. So that was great. I will start rhyming off. I love so many, but metal is my heart. But I also have a 90s hip hop part of my world that is equally part of my DNA. Unfortunately, it can't be the song DNA by Kendrick because it wasn't in the 90s. But, man, Public Enemy, and NWA, even going to dude, I celebrate Kool Mo D.
Yes,
man. I saw when Wild Wild West came out, man. I'm like, oh, you know what, this. And we had Beasties and Run DMC, Aerosmith, but my favorite album of all time, I can give you this one, is the Judgment Night soundtrack. Yep. Bad movie, great soundtrack. And it was the first time I really heard, outside of Walk This Way, the Run DMC Aerosmith one, which is a fascinating behind the scenes story of, it was the first really bringing in metal and hip hop and putting it together. I will argue any one of those tracks can still stand today. Whether it's Booyah Tribe and Faith No More, all the way down to De La Soul. And it's just, yes.
Yeah, I played that. My son didn't know Run DMC and Aerosmith did a song together. He likes Aerosmith, and he's like, really? So we YouTubed it.
I can explain my entire musical
generation.
My entire musical taste can be described by the first 2 cassettes I bought. I bought Run DMC, Raising Hell, and Europe, The Final Countdown.
Yes, I love that.
that explains pretty much everything from there.
Yep. Well, Scott, thanks so much for being gracious with your time this week. I know our audience has appreciated it, having you on, being able to share your insights into, all different types of industries, into the personal side of things, into running business and being a champion for entrepreneurs everywhere. So we thank you so much for being on the show this week.
I should have said, I should have only, oh, please, thank you. It's so nice to hear applause, but I should have made a condition of coming on here. I would only come on here if you would keep doing this. That's what I should have been, because it's so helpful for people. Because one of the things I did last week too, I read comments of not that just about me or when you mentioned, but you are resonating with people, you are helping people, you're changing their life. Keep going.
Appreciate that. We will. With your insight, with your help, I'd love to have you back on the show too. So
You got it.
all right, my friend, take care. Good. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for watching and taking time.
So that's going to wrap this week's show. I can't believe that was one of my bucket list interviews to be able to do. I'm proud that the way that came about and the authenticity and building the community that we have here on the Do What Is Necessary live stream, and those of you who watch the show every week, who tune in every week, who comment, who share, and that's what this is all about, is helping people get through one of the toughest times that we've encountered, and we're not out of the woods yet. And it's about helping each other, and that's the community that I want to continue to build with Team Orange. So if you would like to support Team Orange, you'd like to support this show, unfortunately I can't post comments, they're not coming in. orangenomad.com/merch, all of that goes to the production of this show and helping people. Again, I don't make very much off of the merchandise, but it's just about the support and being able to build community. That's what I want to be able to do. So I'm just excited that Scott was on the show this week. And those of you who haven't read his book, please do so. The show notes below has a link to an Amazon link to the book UnMarketing. It will completely change. I promise you, it will change how you run your business. It will change how you market your business, how you think about relationships. And that was the biggest thing that I got out of that book was, if you believe that business is built on relationships, make building relationships your business. So I just want to thank you again for watching the show, with hanging out with us. Morgan, Scott, Sean, Scotty, Josh, all those who are still watching the show, please, I would be humbled if you could share this with other people. Make use of those buttons below. And if you're watching this over on Facebook and YouTube as well, please share this show with other people, because I want to continue this for as long as I possibly can. And this has been a labor of love for me when we started the show last year, that it is all about doing what is necessary, because that looks different from everybody. It's different for you, different for me, but it's about building the life that you want and living the life on your terms and challenging all of those things that we've been told that our life should look like. And it is 100% dedicated to helping you do that, doing what is absolutely necessary for you. And as I've always ended this show, always stay humble and kind, and always do what is necessary. I'll see you on the next show.